Hi, everybody, and welcome. God, I feel like it's been a while since we both been on together, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think it has actually, because I took off a little bit of time in December traveling in Argentina, and I'll actually well, I'm gonna use that as an example later on in this episode actually. Uh, uh, but it has been a while since you and I have both been on at the same time.
Yeah, it is. But welcome. Welcome, everyone. And if you all want to wish Brian a happy birthday in the chats, because today is his birthday, someone put him out
Oh, I
there.
didn't know we were going there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making me feel old, long in the tooth.
Oh, long in the tooth. Wow. Okay. This week we are going to be talking about the gift of time and making your job optional with passive income, and me
It's the best
being up
birthday
there.
gift you could give yourself.
Serious. Yes, especially the gift of time.
That's right.
The older you get. But I thank everybody for tuning in. Let us know where you are tuning in from. Any questions you have, throw them in the comments in the chat. And with that, Brian, let's talk about how employment depletes us sometimes.
Well, everyone's familiar with that feeling of being totally exhausted on a Friday evening, but um, most of us live more or less hand to mouth, right? I mean, most people spend the overwhelming majority of their paychecks on their living expenses, and when they get a raise, they tell themselves that they're going to save more money and invest more, for retirement, for their kids' college tuitions, for maybe buying a house or whatever. And then they don't, and then they they go out and they find ways to spend that money, whether it's moving into a larger apartment or a larger home, whether it's buying a slicker car, buying fancier clothes, going out to dinner more often,
The
whatever.
funny thing is when you're young like that, you don't think about like time being, but it
Oh,
is.
you think you'll
And
live forever?
right. And then you get older and you realize, oh, I didn't need a bigger house or a fancy car.
Well, and to that point, time is the only non-renewable resource that we have, right? I mean, you can always go out and make more money. You can always, um, you can even go out and make more friends, deepen your relationships with your existing friends or family members. I mean, these are all renewable resources. You have a limited amount of time on this planet, and you don't know how long that is, right? I mean, any of us could be struck by lightning tomorrow. But however much longer we're all around on this planet, limited amount of time, and there's really nothing you can do to extend that, short of eating your vegetables more and quitting smoking and so forth. But yeah, time is the only truly non-renewable resource that we all have, and that makes it the most precious and valuable resource that we all have. Again, you can always go out and make more money. So when you take control of your money, you also take control of your time. So put away, by reaching financial freedom, you also reach time freedom. When you can cover your living expenses, or at least a big chunk of your living expenses, with passive income from investments, and you don't have to go into your full-time job anymore in order to survive, uh, your full-time job becomes optional, and you regain total control over your time.
And
So
this
that's
is
why this is so
doable.
important.
I mean, we've interviewed so many people that have done this. There's people in their 30s with little babies that have control over their own time.
Absolutely. People who have reached financial independence, financial freedom, whatever you want to call it. Um, and uh, that is true freedom. When you control your time, you control your life in its entirety. Um, so yeah, I mean, we can talk about ways to build passive income, and we're going to talk about lots of different passive income streams you can create. But I want to give this example from how I spent the holidays. I did what's called a red month. I didn't coin that term. I can't remember who did coin that term. It was someone I heard on a Choose FI podcast episode, but I loved the term. A red month is when you take a block of time, a month theoretically, and you cross a big red X through it, and you don't schedule any meetings, and you don't schedule any obligations, work obligations, and you go and do whatever it is you want to do. And it doesn't mean you don't work at all. I mean, I still did plenty of work while I was traveling with my family in Argentina. But we spent almost a month traveling around Patagonia, hiking, visiting wine country in Mendoza, going down to the southern tip of the continent in Ushuaia, and seeing the penguins and the cormorants and all that. Um, and that's the kind of thing that you can do when you have more control over your money and your time. I'm not financially independent. I I don't think of myself as even being necessarily close to being financially independent, but by building these passive income streams, and by it helps to be self-employed, right? um, Denny and I are co-founders of Spark Rental, so that helps too. But you can do this with freelance work, with consulting work. There's all kinds of ways to do this. Um, but by having those streams of passive income, not being so dependent on a full-time job, you have the freedom and flexibility to do things like a red month. And that is incredible. A variation of that, a longer term variation of that, people sometimes talk about mini retirements. Well, they'll go and they'll suspend their job or quit their job, or take a sabbatical from their job for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever, and go and travel, or go and spend time with family, what it is that they want to do before returning to full-time work. So mini retirements are another variation on this that people sometimes do. And again, it helps a lot to have passive income streams, whether those are from real estate,
Absolutely.
or from other things like dividend paying stocks, or bonds, or whatever. And then the most extreme version of this is, I hate this term barista fire, but I'm going to use it just because some people are familiar with it. The idea is that you may not have enough passive income to cover all of your living expenses, but you have enough to quit your high stress, high octane day job, and then go and pick up work that you find more enjoyable,
Mm-hmm.
or that you are more passionate about. So hence the term barista fire, where someone quits their high stress office job and they go and work as a barista at Starbucks, or whatever, or working in a winery pouring wines, whatever it is, some kind of laid back job. But a theme that Denny and I have noticed again and again and again with the people that we've had on this show, people who have reached financial independence with real estate or through other means, is that none of them are actually retired, right? Like, all of them went on to do some other type of work. Now,
Right.
not high stress day job work. In many cases, they went on to start a business. Like Rick Orford launched the Financially Independent
Mm-hmm.
Millennial. Um,
Al
so
Williamson.
sometimes they start online businesses. Sometimes they go work for nonprofits. Like Ashley Thompson, she trains seeing eye dogs now, um,
That is
as her
so good.
calling.
That's very cool. I love that.
Yeah. So, some people volunteer full time. Like, actually, I don't think Ashley gets paid to do that. I think that's all volunteer. But
Hmm.
the point is, people go out and they find work that they are passionate about. Sometimes that pays quite well. Sometimes that doesn't pay well at all. But with passive income streams, you don't need to cover all of your living expenses necessarily to go create your perfect life. You just need enough to cover the gap between what your dream work pays and what you want to live on. And let's be clear that you could quit your job today and go do your dream work, and just spend less money, right? I mean,
Right.
if you took a 30% pay cut, you could just spend 30% less and go live your dream life right now. But of course, that involves cutting back on your spending, which not everyone wants to do, and I understand that. Even if I uh, don't necessarily want to encourage that mentality, I understand it. um, so what you can do is just aim to create enough passive income from your investments to bridge that gap between your dream work and your target living expenses. Um, so if you live on 60 grand a year, I'm making up numbers, if you live on 60 grand a year and your dream job pays 50 grand a year, then you need 10 grand a year in passive income. And that is a much more feasible number than covering the entire 60, right? Which is what we typically talk about with financial independence, of covering 100% of your living expenses with passive income. You don't need to
Right.
do that. You just need enough to help you bridge that gap so you can go out and live your dream lifestyle, doing your dream work. So, uh, anyway, I went on a bit of a rant there, but so all right, let's switch
It's
gears.
just a whole, like, the mindset of my parents and even a good bit of mine for many years was that you work, 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 and then you retire. And it's kind of funny because if you retire, then you're older. You don't know if you could travel. You don't know if you could do all these things. Who knows? Because as you get older, you're more susceptible to sicknesses and just being older. And I just think that if we all changed our mindsets, we would have a lot of happier people, really.
No question. And you raised a very good point about the 20th century model of retirement. So, for example, my father has basically worked for one employer his entire life. Now his job has evolved over time. I mean, now he's the president of the company, but he didn't start there, of course. He started in the proverbial mailroom or whatever. Um, but he will basically retire from that career and then be sitting around twiddling his thumbs and won't really know what to do with himself, even though he'll still hopefully be quite healthy. And that's kind of the problem with this 20th century model of retirement: is you work for 40 or 50 years, they throw you an office party on a Friday and they give you the gold watch or whatever, and then you disappear from the working world entirely, and you don't know what to do with yourself. Your spouse is frustrated with you because you're suddenly hanging around the house all the time. Uh, so a better model is to do is to switch over to your dream work earlier rather than later,
Mhm.
something that you're super passionate about, and that you have more control over theoretically, because you don't need it to survive. Um, so you can then go off and have a whole series of other, if you want to call them post-retirement careers, or post-fi careers, or whatever you want to call them. There's not really a perfect name for these, but a series of jobs that are post high stress career, that are much more flexible, much more fun, much more meaningful to you, fulfilling. Um, like I said, you could go pour wine in a winery if you want, um,
And drink
and
it.
then and drink it, yeah, um, and scale those back to part time if you so choose. Whereas most of these kind of high stress career jobs, it's really hard to go part time on those and to kind of gradually scale them
Mhm.
back and like into to phase into retirement. So I'm a huge fan of these sort of like semi-fi, semi-retirement kind of jobs. Whether you're working full time or part time, whether it's fun work, meaningful work, hopefully all of the above. Um, but I would very much encourage people to think differently about retirement, and have a
Yes.
much more kind of fluid view of it, where it's this spectrum. It's not this full stop where you go from 60 to 0 in 2.4 seconds, right? So on that note, yeah, Denny, let's get tactical here and let's talk about ways to build passive income streams. And you and I've talked, we've talked about this some over the years,
Mhm.
but it never hurts to recap this, because people tend to walk away with at least one new idea when we walk through some of these ideas for creating passive income streams.
Right.
So start us off here. What do you like for streams of passive income?
Well, I'm gonna hit rental properties, although there is
Of
work
course,
involved
of
in
course.
that, but it is a passion of mine. I've managed all my life, and I actually like it. And um, there's so many advantages. The most likely properties increase in value. Somebody else is paying the mortgage, and it's my husband and I have properties, and chances are those properties will be helping us retire. They already are. So I think properties is definitely a good way. Um, the other thing that we've talked about is business income. I know that I currently own a business with Brian, surprise, and it allows me to make my own schedule. So I have 12 grandchildren, one more coming, and I get to spend time with them, and that's my happy place. And if I had to work a 9 to 5 with overtime, I wouldn't be able to do that. And then I'm going to let Brian talk a little bit more about rights and crowdfunding and whatnot. But I'm very passionate about the real estate syndications and co-investing. It's investing in properties without the hassles of tenants and repairs and all of that, which is amazing to me. It's a fairly new concept. I'll be completely open, but I am involved now, and I plan on being involved more in the future because it's to me it's even more stable than stocks. We all know what's happening with this world's economy right now, and I think rentals are something that are always going to be needed, probably more so coming soon.
Well, to just expand on a point that you just made there, that's this is why it pays to diversify, right? Because look no further than the stock market in 2022. We had a bear market. Nasdaq and the S&P were down more than 20%
Mm.
at their low point, and end of the year not that far from that low point actually. Um, and I love stocks. I'm not trying to poo-poo them. But stocks are highly volatile. Easy for me to say. uh, Stocks are volatile, um, and this is one of the many reasons why you want to diversify and create many different streams of passive income. Um, Rental properties. They don't have the same volatility in price that stocks do, but on a month-to-month basis, the actual cash flow that you receive is volatile because 1 month you might not have any expenses other than your mortgage, and then the next
Right.
month you might get hit with a $5,000 furnace repair bill, right? So that is also fluctuating income from rental properties, which is why a lot of people invest in real estate crowdfunding or publicly traded REITs, and we'll dive more into those in just a moment. In real estate syndications, and since you brought that up, Deni, let's talk about that and how it works. I love real estate syndications. They're completely passive ways to invest. All you have to do is write a check, or I guess in the 21st century, just send money by ACH. But yeah, you don't have to field 3 a.m. phone calls from tenants complaining about how they clog the toilet and wanting you to come over and plunge it, or demanding that you change a light bulb for them. You don't have to worry about. Well, I laugh, but that happens.
No, I know. Just
You don't have to worry about maintenance, repairs. You don't have to worry about fighting property tax bills. Um, you just sit back and collect the distributions, which are typically either monthly or quarterly, and much more stable, much more
mhm.
regular than rental income. And then at the end, when the property sells, you get a big paycheck. So I love real estate syndications. They do come with their hurdles and their challenges, of course, like all investments. The
Mhm.
two big ones are that some syndicators only allow accredited investors, so wealthy investors, and that's a challenge for middle class investors. Finding reputable syndicators who allow non-accredited investors. That's one challenge. The other big challenge is meeting the high minimum investment on these. It's typically $25 to $100,000 minimum investment in a real estate syndication, which, to be frank, is either out of reach or a big stretch for middle class
Right.
Americans. I mean, that could be their income for the entire year. So, what Deni and I have created is an investing club. We call it the co-investing club, where once a month we propose a syndication deal. All of them are available to non-accredited investors, and any members of the club who want in can participate for $5,000 a person as a minimum investment. They can invest more if they want, or they can skip the deal entirely if they're not feeling it. Deni and I put our own money in these deals if there's enough interest from the club in proceeding with them. But it's really, it's a joint, pooled kind of style of investing. Where we all get together once a month, we bring the syndicator on so we can grill them, ask them questions, and then discuss the deal afterwards and decide if we all want to move forward together or not. So that is one option as well. And then, let's talk crowdfunding here, because real estate crowdfunding
Just to
is
interrupt you for 1 minute, I do have a link in the chat if you want to learn more about co-investing and also about passive streams of income altogether. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah. So there's a we linked to an article as far there about 17 different passive streams of income you can create, including many from real estate. So, even that $5,000 minimum, for syndications in our co-investing club, even that is a lot of money for most people, and maybe more than you want to get started with. If you want to dip your toe in the waters of real estate investing with $10, $100, crowdfunding is a great way to do that. Some platforms require a higher minimum investment, like Streetwise, for example, has a $5,000 minimum, but many allow a $10 minimum, a $100 minimum, like
Which is
Fundrise,
crazy.
Ground Floor, Concrete. These all allow you to invest with $10. Arrived Homes, which lets you buy fractional ownership in rental properties, their minimum investment is $100. So you can dip your toe in the water with crowdfunding investments, see how you like it, and then expand from there. It's a great, easy way to start. Alternatively, publicly traded REITs are another easy way to start. You can invest with as little as the cost of a single share, which is often $10, $20. So you can start small. They're also highly liquid, as
Mm,
opposed to real estate crowdfunding investments, which are not very liquid. Um, Crowdfunding investments typically require you to leave your money locked up for 3, 4, 5 years. And if they do let you sell early, sometimes they hit you with a
yeah.
penalty for that. Whereas publicly traded REITs, you can buy them and sell them on public stock exchanges. So you can buy and sell at any time with no penalty. Now, there is a downside to that, though, and that is, or two downsides. One is volatility, right? The price goes all over the place with stock, just like any other stock. And the other big drawback, and to me, this is the killer, is that they have too close of a correlation with stock markets. When
Mm,
stock markets crash, so do REIT prices, even if real estate markets are totally sound. And
it's crazy.
you saw that in 2020 when the stock markets did that like flash crash in spring of 2020 in the pandemic. Stock markets crashed and REIT prices also took a big dive, even though there was nothing wrong with housing markets. In fact, it kicked off a huge spike in real estate
Yes.
values across the country for the next 2 years after that. So that correlation between publicly traded REITs and stock markets, to me, defeats some of the purpose of investing in real estate. I mean, I invest in real estate for diversification because I have a lot of money, a lot of my net worth is tied up in stocks, but that I want to hedge against stock market crashes, right? So that's one of the reasons why I invest in real estate is to diversify. But if your publicly traded REITs crash in value right alongside stocks, doesn't really provide you much diversification value. But you do get that liquidity, which is a big advantage. And then, of course, bonds are an oldie but goodie, especially in an era of higher interest rates. Bonds suddenly become a decent investment again. For most of the 21st century, interest rates have been low. Central banks have mostly held interest rates low for this century, and bond yields have been pretty unattractive as a result. And that has added another challenge for retirement planning, by the way. Um, and it's one of the reasons why people turn to things like real estate investments, or have turned to real estate
Right.
investments. Uh, Nowadays, with interest rates a little higher, bonds actually offer decent returns in some cases. I mean, if you're buying treasury bonds, they're still going to be very low returns, but perfectly safe as well. So, not trying to take anything away from bonds. Um,
We don't want them to get offended, bonds.
yeah, exactly. we keep it PC around here. So,
So,
yeah,
is there
those
any
are,
other?
well, I mean, there's all kinds of other things you can do for passive income. You can go out there and create creative works, right? To earn royalties.
Mm,
Music, photography, novels. Whatever it is. But those are the big ones that I like. I try to keep it very simple with my stock investments. I invest mostly in index funds, and I try to spread it around to you know every industry, and small cap, medium, mid cap, large cap, U.S. Companies, uh, emerging markets, international developed markets. Um, so my stock portfolio is pretty broad and diversified and mainstream. So with my real estate, I am willing to get a little bit more adventurous with like real estate crowdfunding, um, with syndications. But my favorite investment right now is real estate syndications, because I think you can find a sweet spot of moderate risk, like mid-range risk, with very
Hmm.
high returns. So there's that disconnect between the returns and the risk where you can do well. So, Denny, any final thoughts that you have about building passive income to basically buy back your future time, and retake control over your future time?
Well, I will tell you this. I am almost at retirement age. I have no desire to retire. I'm not somebody who's gonna.
Good. I can't have you going
Oh,
anywhere.
my father was the same way. My father invested in real estate. That was his big heart, but it enabled him to retire early. But he never retired. He worked right up until, yeah. So, but the nice thing is the choice. And I wish I would have known these things when I was in my 30s, um, because, it's never too late and it's never too early to start, but the earlier the better. So that would be my final comments.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Please, if you enjoy what we're talking about up here, leave us positive reviews on iTunes, on Stitcher, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Us get the word out, help reach more people. So we don't do a very good job of asking you guys to do that on a week to week basis, or plugging the show. But yeah, if you enjoy it, please give us a nice rating. And on that note, we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Have a great week.
Absolutely. Have a great week. Bye bye.